In this journey, we aren't just looking at history, we are breathing it. Using the power of advanced AI to reconstruct the sights, sounds, and psychological landscape of the 17th century, we are about to embark on an epic exploration of Amsterdam's golden age. This is a story of how a small fishing village outmaneuvered kings and conquered the oceans without ever firing a shot from a palace. Before we dive into the heart of the Venice of the North, if you find yourself captivated by the stories of how humanity shapes destiny, make sure to subscribe to our channel and join our community of explorers. Now, let us peel back the layers of time. Our story begins not with a bang, but with a soft lap of water against a muddy bank. The year is 1622, but to understand this moment, we must look back to Oudekerk. Here, the Amstel River snakes through a pastoral landscape that feels a world away from the chaos of modern life. In the beginning, there was only the water and the wind. The Dutch did not inherit power, they engineered it. The very name Amsterdam comes from the dam built on the Amstel. This wasn't a grand monument, it was a functional necessity. This region served as the primary highway for inland goods, a vital artery where the pulse of the countryside met the ambition of the coast. Visualize the transition, a tranquil fishing community where the greatest concern was the day's catch, suddenly finding itself at the center of a burgeoning urban power. The river was the lifeblood. It wasn't just water, it was a conveyor belt. As the Dutch learned to manage the flow of the Amstel, they learned to manage the flow of wealth. This was the genesis, a humble realization that whoever controls the water controls the world. The transition from a quiet landscape to a global hub was the first great pivot in human history, proving that geography is not destiny, it is an opportunity. As the wealth began to pour in, Amsterdam became a target. You cannot be the richest city in the world and remain undefended. But the Dutch defense was as much about engineering as it was about soldiers. This was the era of the 80 Years' War with Spain, a David versus Goliath struggle where the David was a group of merchants in wet socks. The city expanded behind massive earthen ramparts and the imposing Haarlem Gate. These weren't just walls, they were statements of sovereignty. But look closer at the horizon. You see the windmills, those iconic silhouettes. In any other country, a windmill might just grind grain. In Amsterdam, they were the city's lungs. They were water management machines, pumping the very soul of the land out of the sea to keep the low-lying polders dry. This period saw the birth of the Canal Belt, the Grachtengordel. This wasn't random urban sprawl. It was a masterpiece of concentric circles, a mathematical triumph of urban planning. Each canal was a defensive moat, a transport lane, and a status symbol all in one. The Dutch were literally carving their future out of the mud, creating a city that functioned like a clockwork machine. While the history books often focus on the grand galleons, the real miracle of Amsterdam happened at St. Anthony's Gate and the old harbour basin. Here, we find the workhorses of the economy. If the ocean-going ships were the heart, the smaller barges and canal boats were the capillaries.
We gonna keep on working until it hurts.
The Dutch genius lay in logistical efficiency. Imagine a seagoing vessel arriving from the Baltic, heavy with timber and grain. In any other port, unloading would take weeks. In Amsterdam, it was a choreographed battle. Goods were rapidly transferred to small, flat-bottomed boats that could navigate the shallow, intricate canal network right to a merchant's doorstep. This was the middleman philosophy in its infancy. By mastering the last mile of delivery 400 years before the concept existed, Amsterdam ensured that the Baltic's grain fed Europe and the North's timber built the world's fleets. They turned a logistical bottleneck into a competitive advantage. Now we move to the main harbour. Close your eyes and hear the forest of masts clashing in the wind. This was the headquarters of the Verenigd Oostindische Compagnie, Waag, the Dutch East India Company. This wasn't just a company, it was the world's first multinational corporation, possessing its own army, its own navy, and the power to strike treaties. The Dutch realized something revolutionary. You don't need to grow the spices to get rich from them. Amsterdam became the world's marketplace. They were the ultimate middlemen, trading Indonesian cloves, Chinese silks, and Russian furs. At the harbour stood the guardhouse, a symbol of maritime regulation. Every ship was inspected, every cargo catalogued. This wasn't just bureaucracy, it was control. By standardizing trade and ensuring that every ounce of pepper passed through their gates, the Dutch maintained a stranglehold on global commerce. They didn't just participate in the market, they were the market.
The route around the Cape remains essential.
Indeed.
The year 1651 brought the construction of two massive blockhouses to the southern approach. They were grim reminders that Amsterdam's prosperity was built on a knife's edge, constantly threatened by rival naval forces like the English and the French. But the Dutch spirit is not one of perpetual gloom. In the winter, a strange transformation occurred. When the Amstel froze solid, the blockhouses ceased to be military bastions and became backdrops for a grand social theatre. The frozen river became a playground. Rich merchants in furs and labourers in rags would lace up their skates and glide across the ice together. In a society often defined by rigid commerce and Calvinist austerity, the winter festivals were a rare moment of community. It reminds us that even in a world of cutthroat trade, the human need for connection and play remains paramount. The ice was the great equalizer. In the heart of the Neo-Markt stands De Waag, the public warehouse. This building is the physical manifestation of trust. In the 17th century, if you were buying gold or expensive spices, how did you know you weren't being cheated? You went to De Waag. Every significant transaction was verified here. This commitment to commercial standardization is what made Amsterdam the world's financial safe haven. But De Waag was more than a scale. It was a cultural hub. On its upper floors sat the Surgeons' Guild. This is where Rembrandt painted the anatomy lesson of Dr. Nicole's Tulp. It is a profound intersection. The same building that weighed the world's spices also hosted the cutting-edge medical science of the day. It shows that in Amsterdam, trade, regulation, and the arts were not separate worlds. They were all part of the same quest for truth and precision. Walking along the Clovey-Neersburgwal Canal, we encounter the Trippen House. Owned by the Tripp brothers, wealthy arms dealers, it is an architectural masterpiece. But look at the details. The chimneys are shaped like mortars.
We'll take 5 florins per sack.
This segment of our journey reveals the social hierarchy of the Golden Age. Canal houses were not merely residences, they were billboards of success. The 17th century urban planning was so precise that plots were sold with strict regulations, yet the elite found ways to showcase their staggering wealth through neoclassical facades and interior opulence. This was the world of the patrons, the men who funded Vermeer and Rembrandt. They were the new money of Europe, and they used architecture to cement their status in a republic that officially frowned upon vanity but privately worshipped success. If the harbour was the body of Amsterdam, the Amsterdam Exchange, completed in 1611, was the brain. This was the world's first modern stock exchange. Here, the Dutch invented the future. They pioneered liquid trading, where shares in the VOC could be bought and sold daily. They invented futures contracts, betting on the price of goods that hadn't even arrived in port yet. They also experienced the world's first major financial bubble, tulip mania. People were trading houses for a single flower bulb until the market inevitably collapsed. This wasn't just about money. It was about the psychology of risk. The exchange turned Amsterdam into the undisputed capital of the global economy, proving that information and credit are more powerful than gold bars stored in a basement. Everything leads to Dam Square. This is the absolute center. Dominated by the town hall, now the royal palace, this space was the seat of power for the Dutch Republic. Note that it was a town hall first, not a palace for a king. Amsterdam was a city of 200,000 people run by regents, wealthy merchants who held the purse strings of kings. The square was a melting pot where a Swedish sailor might brush shoulders with a Spanish Jew or a Calvinist preacher. This square represents the unique Dutch political identity, a pragmatic, pluralistic society where the main goal was stability for the sake of profit. It was a republic built on the idea that commerce is a better stabilizer for society than the whims of a monarch. Our journey concludes at the Westerkerk. Its tower is the tallest in the city, a pinnacle of Dutch Renaissance architecture. As a Protestant landmark, its beauty is austere, reflecting the Calvinist values of hard work, thrift, and sobriety that underpinned the Golden Age. But there is a poignancy here. Within these walls lies the final resting place of Rembrandt van Rijn. He died in poverty, living his fame, yet he is the one who immortalized this era. The Westerkerk stands as a reminder that while empires of trade may rise and fall, the soul of a city, its faith, its art, and its people, is what truly endures. As we look back on the rise of Amsterdam, we see more than just history. We see a blueprint for resilience. The Dutch took a swamp and turned it into a superpower through three main virtues: innovation, integration, and integrity. The Dutch didn't wait for the perfect environment. They built it. They turned their greatest weakness, the encroaching sea, into their greatest strength. In your own life, look at the swamps you are facing. Is there a way to dam the water and build a canal? Is there a way to turn your obstacles into the very infrastructure of your success? Adopt the middleman mindset. In a world of overwhelming information, value lies in being the person who can organize, standardize, and distribute ideas. Like the merchants at Waag, prioritize integrity in your dealings. Your reputation is the only currency that never devalues. If you were standing in Dam Square in 1650, what would you have traded? A share in a ship you've never seen, a tulip bulb that might never bloom, or a painting by a man named Rembrandt? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for traveling through time with us. This content was reimagined using AI to bring the 17th century to life in a way never before possible. I wish you all great health, the vision of an engineer, and the courage of a sailor. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. Until next time, keep exploring.
I still can't believe you said that. It was hilarious. Cheers, everyone, to Amsterdam.